after Diwali, trying not to have that. In the West, we have a post-Christmas letdown sometimes. All this energy builds and builds for Christmas, and then the week after, we all kind of have to relax and recoup and recover. Luckily, we have a very auspicious event happening today with India in the World Cup final, so hopefully that'll help keep the energy a little higher than perhaps usual.
There'll be a big Diwali celebration after we win the finals.
That's right. Celebrating the light's overcoming of the darkness. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing this time with you all. And in order to begin, let's invoke the presence of the Masters with a prayer. Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Friend, Beloved God,
Friend, Beloved God,
Great Masters,
Great Masters,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahasaya,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
our beloved Guru,
our beloved Guru,
Paramhansa Yogananda,
Paramhansa Yogananda,
saints and sages of all traditions,
saints and sages of all traditions,
joyfully we bow before you all.
joyfully we bow before you all.
O Divine Mother,
O Divine Mother,
be with us.
be with us.
Reveal yourself to us.
Reveal yourself to us.
We know you are with us,
We know you are with us,
but we cannot see you.
but we cannot see you.
Sometimes we cannot feel you,
Sometimes we cannot feel you,
but we know you are there,
but we know you are there,
loving us silently,
loving and silently,
waiting for us to open our hearts
waiting for us to open our hearts
so that you can fill us
so that you can fill us
with love unimaginable,
with love unimaginable,
with joy divine.
with joy divine.
We are your children.
We are your children.
Come to us.
Come to us.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Begin with a chant and some meditation. This chant is Thousands of Suns. It's by Paramahansa Yogananda. If we have chant books, maybe they can be passed out to those who may not know. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my mother divine? We'll take this chant into a brief meditation. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Let's meditate now for a few moments. Allow yourself to become inwardly still. Just these few minutes. Allow the name of the Divine to repeat in your mind and in your heart.
Shanti, Shanti. Let us all do this week's affirmation. The affirmation for today will be on perseverance, which, as always, ties in quite well with the topic of the satsang today, which is formula for spiritual success. And I'm sure all of us will agree that no matter what formula master has given us, we need to do our part, which is perseverance. So that is what we will try to do this week. So let's go through how Swamiji has described perseverance first. Loyalty, my great spiritual teacher used to say, is the first law of God. Most people are fickle. They change their jobs, their spouses, their friends, their beliefs, their ideas, not because of any new expansion of awareness, but because they lack the simple power of perseverance. One must be loyal to one's principles and not allow oneself to be ruled by sentiment. To be loyal to others and to one's assumed goals in life, not for sentimental reasons, but in the name of principle, is the way of divine progress. Perseverance can be difficult, for in every undertaking there is a certain amount of dull routine. Don't be ruled, therefore, by likes and dislikes, but do whatever has to be done. If it is right, let nothing intervene until the job is finished. Let's practice the affirmation now, loudly at first. Let's close our eyes and repeat after me. And even as we do the affirmation, let's keep the presence of Lord Ram and the Divine Mother and know that their power is flowing through us. I will finish what I set my mind to do
I will finish what I set my mind to do
before leaving it for something else.
before leaving it for something else.
My word is my bond.
My word is my bond.
So also is my resolution.
So also is my resolution.
I will finish what I set my mind to do
I will finish what I set my mind to do
before leaving it for something else.
before leaving it for something else.
My word is my bond.
My word is my bond.
So also is my resolution.
So also is my resolution.
In normal voice now, I will finish what I set my mind to do
I will finish what I set my mind to do
before leaving it for something else.
before leaving it for something else.
My word is my bond.
My word is my bond.
So also is my resolution.
So also is my resolution.
Softer now, I will finish what I set my mind to do before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. And now let's penetrate and implant this thought in our superconsciousness by lifting up the gaze at the point between the eyebrows. And let's repeat this affirmation mentally only. I will finish what I set my mind to do before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. I will finish what I set my mind to do before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. Let's do the prayer now inwardly. Though the sirens of distraction call me to turn aside and relax the sternness of my dedication, keep me steadfast on my path, Lord. My goal in life is Thee. Om. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Very glad to have you all here today with us. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's the formula for spiritual success. And I think when we all come to the spiritual path, somehow we hope that there is just a formula. We hope that there's some simple series of things that will yield the particular result that we're looking for. That is the genius of math. It's why some people love math, and it's why some people really hate it. Is that if you get it and you understand how it flows, it can be very comforting. There's an attunement to it. You say, oh yeah, I know that because every time I do this, this, and this, I get this result. For others of perhaps us, it seems very unintuitive. It's how am I supposed to remember all of these things, and I have to remember all these rules, and I have to apply them in this way, and it doesn't make sense, and I get my calculator, but now I'm even more confused. So we're going to have to explore and see something that works for all of us. So when I was thinking about this formula for spiritual success, I of course went immediately to the maths, the numbers that come up in the spiritual path, and there are many of them. Paramahansa Yogananda references math quite a bit. I don't know if it has to do with his own torturous experiences with education or the fact that the West, especially at that time, had the reputation for being a much more logic-based culture, much more science-oriented. But there were a few different things that came to mind when I was thinking about this. One is a very interesting recording, and I think this kind of ties the whole thing to a point, which is it's for his birthday, and for his birthday, I don't know which birthday it was, but he was well into, his earthly body was well into its 40s or maybe even 50s. They put one candle on the cake, and he makes sort of a joke of it. Oh, it's my birthday, and my age is 1. But then he talks a little bit more about that. Yeah, the age is 1. You'd ask the age of the house, the age of the body, but my age, I am infinite. I'm one with God. My age is 1. And it's interesting that many cultures, many religions have this concept of the number 1 being very important. God is one and eternal. Swami Kriyananda writes in the very beginning of the Festival of Light, truth is one and eternal, and truth is essentially God. So there is one, and this idea that, it's very popular these days, and it's based on a truth, that all of the different world religions and different cultures, they all lead back to the same place. You can think maybe of a wheel, lots of spokes coming from all different sides around the edge, but they all come to this one singular point. Now, in order to talk about the power of one, which is what I want to share about today, we actually have to go and talk first about the power of 0. And I'm going to share something that I learned in 6th grade in mathematics. Now, interestingly, as a side note, many of you may know my 6th grade math teacher. His name is Dharmarajan. He's currently serving as the spiritual director of Ananda's work in Chennai. And today they're actually dedicating a brand new temple, so let's keep them also in our prayers. But at that time, he was just my math teacher. And we went to an Education for Life school, which is the school and education approach connected to Ananda and based on Yogananda's teachings. And one day, we were learning something. And for those of you who know, and also those of you who don't, when you take any number and raise it to the power of 0, that answer, the solution to that, is 1. Any number, 10, 1,000, a crore, 20 trillion, a Google. Raised to the power of 0, it always becomes 1. And I was curious. And I asked that question that every EFL teacher is waiting to hear. Why? Why are all these numbers raised to the power of 0, 1? Every other exponent changes it dramatically. 1, 2, 3, 6 become wildly different numbers. Why is it that every number, no matter what I take, even variables, even x to the power of 0 is 1, no matter what x is? So why? So like a good teacher, he threw away whatever we were probably supposed to do that day, and he delved into this. And I won't go deeply into it. We can bring out the whiteboard after the satsang if anyone wants to see the mathematical proof thrown down. But I still remember it to this day. And essentially what it is you think of it as a fraction. You have values on the top, values on the bottom. Let's say x to the power of 2. X to the power of 2 is the same as x to the power of 4 over x to the power of 2. And you cancel. You have them all there, and you just cancel. If there's an x on the bottom and an x on the top, you can just cancel it. You can take it away. So what happens if it's x to the power of 2 over x to the power of 2? There's 2 x's on the top, 2 x's on the bottom. Cancel, 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 cancel. Nothing is left. but you can't have nothing. What happens when you cancel all of these things away is you're left with an invisible value that was there all along mathematically, but you never write. That is 1. There's always a 1 there. What happens if you take 6 divided by 6? Let's put a real number in. You get 1. So there's always a hidden 1 in there. Now, what's interesting to me about that is that's sort of an analog, I didn't realize until much later, for the spiritual path. We are on this search for the divine, search for truth, search for realization. But the truth is, how do we get there? We're always told that we have to get rid of our desires, get rid of our attachments, get rid of all these things. Those are the variables. What happens when you cancel my desire for this? I think this will make me happy. I think this will make me unhappy. And you get rid of, you cancel, you remove. You're not left with nothing, which is a popular belief. It's like, oh, if I give up my desires, if I give up my attachments, who will I be? I love, Team India cricket. That's part of who I am. I want Australia to be destroyed. That's part of who I am. I like pizza and I don't like hot chocolate. That's what makes me me. And there is that fear that if I relinquish the ego, that nothing will remain. And yet, at the end of it, if we cancel, we'll be left always still with that 1. There's another interesting power of 1 that Yogananda talks about. And it is he talks about, he teaches, his teachings are really broad. They're extremely deep, but they're truly broad. I've been on this path for 14 years. I also grew up with it. So really my entire life I've been hearing about these teachings. I've yet to find one subject, one thing, one aspect of human life that he does not address. Of course, you have the spiritual practice. Okay, we meditate, we do pranayama, we do things like that. But he also talks about diet, he talks about work, he talks about human relationships, he talks about raising children, he talks about when you have an enemy at work, he talks about everything. Sports even, exercise, the importance of physical exercise. Everything is included. And on one hand, that's extremely beautiful, but it can also be a little overwhelming. Look how much I'm expected to do. I really have to do all of this in order to find God, in order to be happy again? But he says something that is extraordinarily comforting. And for a long time, I thought it was 10, but the value is actually 1. He said, if you do 1% of what I teach you, you will find God. If you do 1% of what I teach you, you will find God. Isn't that comforting? Isn't that really kind? And at the end of the day, it has to be true, because you look at all of the different devotees of all of the different paths all across the world, and you can find people of true realization in every path. How is it possible? If my path says this, but that path says something differently in this one page, then how is he going to find God? We see so much division today in the world right this moment because people saying, I believe this, you believe that, you can't possibly be right because my teacher says this, my book says this, my tradition says this. And yet, it's very easy to find 1% commonality between basically every tradition in the world. They all speak of similar things. It's also interesting what it says for each of us, because we tend to get caught up, or at least I do, or have, with the idea that it has to look a certain way. If I'm going to be spiritual, if I'm going to be on this quest, I have to be very austere, or I have to be very self-disciplined, or I have to be very, I'm not attached to this, or I have to be very, very loving to everyone, and if I'm not, then I'm not fulfilling my path. I'm not actually moving forward. But as long as you're doing 1%, we are told, you are moving towards your self-realization. The timing of it will be up to you. And if you are able to do 2%, maybe it'll happen twice as fast. This part of the formula I'm not sure of yet. We'll all find out. Maybe if you do 50%, it'll go 50 times as fast. But it's also, what kind of energy can you bring if you try to do everything? Every single thing all at once. Swami Kriyananda used the example of washing like a shirt, a dirty shirt, and you push down on one bubble and another one comes up. So now I got to push down on that bubble and another one comes up. He said, far better, just focus on the area that you're focusing on and let the rest take care of itself. It also brings up another interesting point about the individuality of the search. And this ties back into our vision of what is spiritual, what is not. Swami Kriyananda described a very interesting experience he had once. He was blessing everybody after a Kriya initiation. And he just kind of had this veil disappear. Sometimes these things happen through grace. And he said, as each person approached, he could see that individual's unique path to the divine, path to self-realization. And he said every single person's was different from the other. Yogananda said every atom is dowered with individuality. So as we're talking about figuring out God is one and eternal, in every tradition God manifested the heavens and the earth. He manifested all of us. He is in all of us. Even at that same time, he manifests individually in each of us. Everyone in this room, everyone online, everyone who watches this later, everyone in the world who never ever hears these words will find God, because that is the destiny of all people, but they will find it in a way that is entirely unique to them. And that is not a bug, it's a feature. That is how God designed it. So when we're approaching our own spiritual path, it's really important to allow things to happen as they do. Yogananda said something that I really have always connected with. What comes of itself, let it come. Because everything in your life then is designed to draw out your 1%. And the things that happen to you will be different than happen to you, will be different than happen to me. And yet all of those things are coming to bring us to our final realization. Now that we understand the mathematics part, I want to leave with just one idea on the approach, which is how do we? So it's all going to be different, but there are certain attitudes, there are certain ways of moving forward that will help universally, that help everybody. There are certain universal truths. And I was reading Yogananda's commentaries on the Christian Bible. And there's something that Jesus says. He basically gives 2 commandments. Many of you may know in the Old Testament, Moses gave 10 commandments. Christ brought it down to 2. It was very simple. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy mind, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. And the second is, love thy neighbor as thyself. Now it's interesting to me, what is not present in either of those commandments? Us. It's all about loving God with everything you have and loving everyone else with everything you have. And I think, in a way, that's the highest manifestation of that canceling process. If we want to use the power of 0 to discover 1, love the Lord thy God with all thy mind, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, all thy strength, and love others. And eventually there won't be anything left. We'll be raised to the power of 0, and then we'll find out what 1 really is. Guru.
So mathematics, a subject which is very interesting to me as well. And when I first came to Master's teachings, one of his formula that really intrigued me was that success on the spiritual path is 25% devotee's effort, 25% Guru's effort on behalf of us, and 50% is the grace of God. And when I came across this formula, I felt, wow, this is really interesting. And I've always had an analytical bent of mind, so I really started to go into what this means for us. And I thought about this. 25% is my part, 75% is coming from God and Guru's grace. So that is actually 3 times my effort. So essentially, whatever I'm putting out, if my effort is 100% or if my effort is X, God and Gurus are giving me 3X, and I'm able to achieve 4X of what I would have normally been able to achieve. Without God and Guru, I struggled. I tried very hard to achieve different things in life. And every time I would put out X amount of effort, I would probably at best achieve X or maybe much less than that. Right? So this suddenly opened a world of possibilities in front of me. And I thought, boy, this is exactly what I needed on the spiritual path. Now, let's get into the mathematics of this again. And let's pick up on the power of zero that Aryavan spoke about. Right? The prerequisite for any kind of success, even from this formula, is that the devotee's effort and the devotee's part is a must, right? Because even after you become a disciple, the gurus and gods are always there with you. But if your effort, your X is zero, you multiply zero by 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, it doesn't matter. Your success will always and always be zero. And that is why it is always said that God helps those who help themselves, right? That is the secret behind this formula. Now, look at the other end of it, right? This is what Master meant when he said that your 25% needs to be 100%. Because when I do my 100%, I achieve 400%. If I do 200%, 300%, if I put out more and more effort on the spiritual path, imagine how much the multiplication factor kicks in. I do 2x, I get 8x. I do 3x, I get 12x. Now, isn't that amazing? That would have really been impossible without the Guru in our life. But there is one catch. There is always one catch. I'm sure all of us have felt that power of Guru operating through us in our life after we have become disciples, right? When it comes to our health, when it comes to financial success, prosperity, relationships, it's always worked. However, there are many a times, even after we have become a disciple, we feel that we are trying too hard, but nothing is working for us, right? And then there are other times when that formula gets activated maybe even 4 times more, 5 times more. Guru's grace just keeps flowing through us and we feel that we're not doing any effort, right? Now, why does that happen, right? It's important to note that just because we have a guru on our side does not guarantee success. It is an important milestone that we've become disciples, yes, but what is even more important is at any given moment, are we choosing Guru and are we choosing God? Or are we acting from ego consciousness? Because our journey is like this spectrum. On one hand, we are acting completely without the realization of God or Guru, which is the ego consciousness. And on the other hand, we are completely one with God, right? And I believe that the formula which was given by Master is more like an average, which means that sometimes there will be no, when I'm acting from ego consciousness, my effort will be limited to only X and there is nothing more that I'll be able to achieve. And on the other hand, the more I try and get closer and closer to God, that multiplication factor may go beyond 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, or maybe even infinity, right? Now, what does it mean when I say that I must choose God or Gurus at any given moment? Now, let's think about Arjuna. Arjuna was always a yogi, yet when it came to the most important decision in his life, Krishna first gave him a choice. It wasn't assumed by default that God will be there with Arjuna. Arjuna had to make that choice even though he was a yogi always in his life, right? And he chose Krishna, and on the other hand, we all know that Duryodhana chose God's gift over Krishna himself. So at any given moment, what does it mean for us as devotees to choose God, to be able to activate that formula for us at any point of time? So what does it mean? Are we choosing expansion or are we choosing contraction? Are we acting from the consciousness of a Brahmin or Kshatriya, or are we acting from a Vaishya consciousness? Are we acting with a Dwapara Yug dynamic kind of energy, or are we acting with Kali Yug stuck kind of energy, just not willing to make it move, right? When we eat certain kind of foods? Are we choosing the sattvic kind of foods which are light and healthy for us? Or are we having tamasic kind of food which drains our energy, which makes us feel heavy? Are we listening to uplifting kinds of music, again sattvic music, or are we listening to tamasic kind of music which again pulls our energy down? These are the ways at any given moment where we are choosing whether we are going to act with God consciousness or we are going to act with ego consciousness, right? Now, in order to make this work for us, there is one more secret which I would like to share with you, and that is, let us always be conscious and aware of this principle, especially when we use it in the 5 S's of our discipleship. That is the best way in which we will be able to ensure that we are drawing God and Guru's grace at any given point of time. And what are those 5 S's? I'm sure most of you know. It is Seva, Sadhana, Satsang, Support, and Study. Right? Now let's think about Seva first. What is our part when it comes to Seva? Our part is simply to say yes to any Seva opportunity that we might get. Now, often for me, I've realized that there are so many things going on at work, and I tell myself, I don't have time for Seva. There are new and new projects coming up at work, I don't have time for Seva. I have a baby at home, I do not have time for Seva. And suddenly I tell myself, wait a minute, what is happening? With my experience in the last 9 years, I've realized that I have to say yes to Seva. And the moment I say yes, Master begins to weave his magic. Literally, and I mean literally, things at work begin to mold themselves in such a way that I see Master is making it easier for me to do more and more Seva. And for many of you, you may know that I'm into corporate banking. The moment I say yes for Seva, I get dragged into less useless calls. There are less client escalations that I need to deal with. There are less operational issues that I have to manage. And believe me, business is not getting impacted. Business, on the other hand, just to give a small example, by God and Guru's grace, the portfolio has increased by more than 40% in the last 1 year. And isn't it amazing? This is only possible because this formula works for us. And how does it work? In this case, we have to do our part, which is saying yes to Seva. Now let's look at support. Support essentially means tithing or setting aside a certain percentage of your income to donate to a cause that you believe in. And let's think about the multiplication factor here. If I'm earning 100 rupees and I decide to give 10 rupees away, could 3 or 4x of that come back to me in some form or shape? If I decide to give 20 rupees away from that 100, imagine that multiplication factor and what comes back to me. But even then, even though this multiplication factor comes back to us and it works for us, the real intention, the real spirit behind support is to loosen the grip that the delusion of money has over us. And every time we try to donate something, we're essentially becoming free from our delusion. That is all that there is in this. And even universe sees that now that the flow of energy has opened through such and such person, if I am going to provide more income to this person, more of it will go out to society as a charitable cause. Whereas इस बंदे को अगर मैं 100 रुपये देता हूँ, it will just get stuck there. यहाँ पे मैं 100 रुपये दे रहा हूँ, 10 is going. Let me try and give him 500, 50 rupees will go for good cause, right? So this formula really works, and we've seen so many times in the life of our own master, Yogananda ji, Swami Kriyananda ji, when they had absolutely nothing with them, and they would embark on a countrywide lecture tour with absolutely nothing. And everyone would get worried, but they knew that they are with God. And when you are with masters, and when you are with God, where is really your effort versus God's effort, right? You begin to realize that everything which is being provided to you is being provided anyways by Master, and it is going back to Master's work and nothing else. And that is when it means that God is helping God. And that is when we begin to understand and we begin to develop faith that I will be provided with what I need when I need it. Right? So let's begin to do our part when it comes to support as well. Let's think about our sadhana. Now, sadhana is, of course, the hardest part. And the reason why it is the hardest is because Maya has tricked us into believing that every time I do my energization exercises or every time I do my meditation, it is all my effort. Somehow we tend to forget that God and Gurus are helping us as much in my sadhana as in anything else. So, next time you begin to do your energization exercises, please remember that you tense your body part. 75% or 3 times of your effort is coming from Master's and God's power through you. And when you start doing your exercises in that way, you will realize that it takes much less effort than we think, right? And we obviously know that sadhana is the best way for us to be able to transcend the limitations of a physical body. From our identification with the physical body, we begin to interiorize, we begin to act more and more from our astral and causal body, and we begin to operate from our higher stages of meditation, which is dhyan and samadhi, right? So the closer we get to God in our sadhana, the more we are able to increase that multiplication factor. So much so that when we are one with the God and Masters in our sadhana, infinite power begins to flow through us. It is not really about 4 times or 5 times anymore. Our power or our effort at that point in time becomes minuscule, right? And then we come out of our meditation, we try to retain the 8 aspects of God in our daily life, and we will realize that every single effort, it is minuscule, and God's infinite power is flowing through us. There is one more S which I seem to be forgetting right now. Satsang, yes, the most important. What do you think our part is when it comes to satsang? It's very simple. Our part is to simply show up. Nothing else. It's Sunday morning, the traffic is the least in Mumbai, and it's not like we begin the satsangs at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So you come at 10 a.m., we don't even do energization, we don't even meditate. All that we need to do in our part in the satsang is to show up. And what I've realized, an amazing thing in the last several years that I've been on this path is, initially especially when I would go to a satsang, I would have hundreds of questions in my mind. And I would just think, I am going to go today, I would prepare a list of all the questions that I would ask the Naya Swamis or the senior acharyas, and everything would be okay. But the moment I would enter a satsang, I would just feel so uplifted. The whole environment is so positive, so, vibrationally it is so strong that after a point, the questions never really mattered. And I'm sure many of us have felt that. And why does this happen? This happens because Master is personally there with us during every satsang. Master is there within each one of our Guru Bhais. And when we come in the company of our Guru Bhais, that formula works like magic. 10 of us, 15 of us, 20 of us getting together and manifesting God's power, Guru's power, that is the best way to be able to do our part in a satsang. That is all that is expected of us to do. And the last part, which is that of study, I will not get into details because I'm sure all of us know the drift of this by now. But like Yukteswar ji said, you pick up only one stanza at a time. It is not about studying more and more and more. You pick up one stanza at a time. You try and integrate that into your being by closing your eyes. You draw God and Guru's power after reading, which is our part, and you will see all the answers begin to come to us even in our meditation. Right? So, like this, there are so many aspects of our life where we just need to be conscious and we need to be aware that this principle works. And the more I do my part, the more I will be able to draw on God and Guru's grace. And at the end of it all, It's a choice that we need to make. Do I choose to be on one end of the spectrum where I am limited by my own energy or effort? Or at any given moment, do I choose to always act with God consciousness? That is all that we need to choose. And to conclude, I would like to say that this week, let us practice the perseverance affirmation and let us try to practice this principle, this formula for spiritual success in all the 5 S's of our life. Jai Guru. Let's do an arti now.
You can all stand. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Take a few moments trying to absorb the light of the Masters, the light of God that shines on the altar, drawing it consciously into our hearts. Now let's share the blessings that we've received as an act of service to all the world, rubbing our hands together. We'll chant Om 3 times. Feel like you're acting as an instrument, a channel for divine power, divine light to flow through you into all the world. Divine Mother, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts, in all hearts. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Go out with joy. if you'd like, you can come up to the altar individually and connect with the light.